Hey, I'm Scott Holliday, and I'm with Detroit Action. And I guess I'll just introduce Taking Back Our Power as a legislative package that seeks to ban political contributions from regulated monopoly corporations and corporations seeking government contracts from being able to, yeah, uh, give political contributions to state elected officials. Um, and I'll just say that it's not a radical idea. 15 states and federal agencies already have similar laws, and we are just, really driving for a transparent government that works for people here in Michigan. This year, we've had our organizers reaching out to community members who agree with this policy proposal. And we've had them do everything from lobby days at Lansing. We've also had members call and email their representatives directly, asking them to sign the Taking Back Our Power pledge, showing that they would back the legislation through the House and Senate. And finally, we've met with legislators in district and had real time asks for them to back this legislation and sign our pledge. Um, we also had a electoral program that was centered around taking back our power that worked in state house districts of people who were taking back our power champions, making sure that our members were actively talking to people in their communities about what taking back our power was and uplifting up people who had already signed the pledge as champions.
Hey, I'm Jonathan Hogstad, the Strategic Campaigns and Research Director with Community Change Action. We're a partner in the Taking Back Our Power Coalition. Um, and we've done a lot of the research around this campaign, and we were also involved with a lot of the Taking Back Our Power partners in another campaign a couple of years ago called Defend Black Voters, where we were basically, there was a set of Republicans in the legislature that were trying to back a voter suppression measure that would have, that was just clearly out to make it harder for Black folks to vote because they disproportionately uh, oppose Republicans and back Democrats. And so this set of Republicans, like extremist right-wing lawmakers, were we're trying to pass this. And then there was a set of corporations uh, that was backing these lawmakers, despite all of these lovely words that said Black Lives Matter, voting rights are good. So we went after the corporations that were backing them hypocritically, given all the values that they've stated. That voter suppression effort was killed with a ballot initiative in 2022. After that, we were kind of pivoting into what other what are the things we could potentially be working on, given the great things we had done together. And what we realized was that virtually all of our corporate targets that we had been looking at, the biggest backers of these extremist lawmakers, uh, were all regulated monopolies or corporations seeking these massive, you know, government contracts like Blue Cross Blue Shield had over $10 billion of contracts. And then there were these set of laws, and we call it legislation to take back our power. In other places, it's been called a little wonkier term, anti-pay to play. Um, and we realized that the courts have actually affirmed that states can, despite the Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, states are allowed to ban political contributions under an anti-corruption sort of framework for these particular types of companies. And then we like looked at all of the top corporate contributors, and virtually all of them were government contractors or regulated monopolies, which in hindsight should make a lot of sense. If your business model is predicated on disproportionate influence over elected official. It's just a simple return on investment. And so these are going to be the most powerful political actors in the state. The courts have allowed us to do it. It's like Scott said, it's been similar things have been passed in other states. Some of them better than others. Some of them have massive loopholes, but the concept is well established. And so this shouldn't be a radical thing. And if we want to make progress on a lot of issues that pocketbook issues that affect working class Michiganders. We can't allow, for example, healthcare costs. We can't allow the health insurance companies to be the most powerful actors in the state if we want to make progress in reducing healthcare costs, which is such like a hard, painful issue for so many people. Is similar uh, uh, for the utilities. If we want to actually have utilities that provide affordable, dependable energy, we can't allow them to have the power that they do. Michigan has the worst power outages in the Midwest, and they pay the most for them.
My name is Nichole Keway Biber. I am working with Clean Water Action, and just in the title of our name, Clean Water Action, it's this awareness of that taking action on something like clean water, how often that just isn't on the agenda, and the reason why that this sort of practical, reasonable framing for legislative and departmental to-do list. It's not something that is straightforward as clean water, often because of the corporate bottom line does not want that to be, because that inconveniences a sort of deregulated framework that does not hold them accountable. And so something like anti-corruption is so popular among the voting public. And I think part of that is because of this awareness. There's so many issues we need to move forward on, and that the root of inaction is that it inconveniences the priorities of corporations. And so, it's a matter of considering the bottom line for these very lucrative companies, or are we going to consider the basic needs of the people? Things like, homes with reliable utilities, healthcare, but also something as basic as water. So the taking back our power, really, it's taking back our power to come forward with our good ideas. There's so many people in grassroots communities, environmental, taking care of one another, our neighbors, that are always needing to react against the latest threat. And we just want to get to the point where we can come forward with the solutions that we have also had for, decades now, of how this could get better, and just have a chance to bring that onto the agenda without always having to push back against this outsized influence of those with the money to influence our politicians who are supposed to be our representatives.
Great. So I'm the organizing director with Michigan United Action, and we are a grassroots member-led organization. And so in 2023, we actually went around the entire state having listening sessions and doing one-on-ones and having just like meaningful conversations with folks to find out what mattered the most to them. And what came up was healthcare, affordable or free healthcare for all, for everyone, and environmental justice, and specifically public power, not just clean air and clean water, but the right to our own utilities. And that came up because we have so many folks that are not only disabled people, but elderly people and folks that just run into different medical issues that end up being bankrupt or just struggling financially for so long because of medical bills. And then public power, because we have been just fighting with DTE and consumers energy for so many years. Like Jonathan was saying, we have these ridiculous power outages where people are losing hundreds of dollars or if more, and not just money and, generator costs, hotels, food, spoiled food, and everything else, but irreplaceable things like breast milk and medication and much more. And they don't ever see a penny for that, maybe $35 if they're really blessed. And that's it. And they keep fighting to get any sort of reimbursement. And instead, they just get another rate hike and another rate hike every single year. And that's because our legislators that we are electing, whose job is to represent their constituents, are being bought and paid for by these exact corporations, by DTE, by Consumers Energy, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Delta Dental, United Healthcare, and they're drowning out the voices of the people. So we're unable to solve these honestly pretty simple issues that are hurting the majority of folks in the state. We've been knocking on doors, not just through paid canvassing, but volunteers have been knocking on doors every week for months, just bringing more people into this campaign and letting them know that there is hope. And there are elected officials that actually do support this and are fighting against corporations. And and then maybe they have elected officials that aren't really trying, and they need to stand up and say something, because now is the time to fight back and make this change. So we've been knocking on doors, we've been going to churches and other institutions around the state, and just trying to have meaningful conversations with folks to let them know that there's a chance for real change here.
Just from what I've noticed, it's when people bring forward their stories of that they are struggling with utilities, struggling with the power outages, and it's just they're largely both outraged and mystified as to how this keeps happening year after year after year. And like so many of these seemingly intractable problems we're facing, well, there are ways to better it. Let's extract ourselves from this. That's not good for your constituents. That's not good for you as a leader, just to sort of set everyone free and get to this point where we can really begin to collaborate and bring forth new and good and beneficial ideas from the people who, as I said before, have a lot of great ideas, a lot of solutions at the ready, what they would need to improve reliability, to improve the water quality, to take care of long neglected matters that when the reason they're neglected is because of corruption, then we need to get rid of the corruption.
The cost is oftentimes really hard to measure. I know there are agencies that try, but I mean, there is the monetary cost to power outages. There's also like the human cost. We're talking about people who are on like medical supplies that require electricity, require refrigeration. That people who have babies that are just home from the hospital that may have some specialized medical treatments that require those things as well. The most vulnerable of us are even more vulnerable, to these frequent outages. And, oftentimes what we feel what we know the response from DTE is less addressing of the grid and more pumping money into their advertisements and making themselves look like good community partners. And I think that a good community partner at that level is a community partner that is responsive to the community that it serves, that is governed by the body that is supposed to govern it, both the State House and the the Michigan Public Service Commission. And I think this is an opportunity for Democratic leadership, to show voters that they're standing with working people for once, and despite the pressure from corporate donors. And so like that is really what this is about.
People get it. They understand what this system is. In terms of polling, we did some polling earlier this summer. 81%, without being told anything about it, just the plain description of the policy, 81% of Michiganders support the policy. That includes Democrats, independents, Republicans. Republicans were the lowest group at 66%, which is still an overwhelming majority. And then once they get the best arguments of both sides, they jump up the most. Because these issues hit everybody. They jump up to like 80%. You have to go to something like ice cream if you want to get that kind of bipartisan agreement. There's nothing in today's world that has from a voter's perspective, has that kind of support across the spectrum. About a third of voters, of eligible voters, just don't vote. And when they've polled those eligible non-voters, they found that they're disproportionately working class. They disproportionately believe that politicians of either party don't care about people like me, and they disproportionately believe that the system is rigged to benefit the rich and corporations. And we can't frame that away. We can't put makeup on that and say like, no, you're mistaken. Like there's real things that people are disengaging with our democracy, with our community. And to get them back to the table and to get them uh, engaged in a vision for how our society can be better, how we can be better for one another, we actually have to address these issues. And taking back our power legislation is a great way to start that process.
Right now we're in this lame duck session, and it's really the last chance for the Democrats that hold the majority for just a little bit longer to do the right thing and show that they actually do support their constituents and the working class and care about healthcare and environmental justice and all the things that they say. It's time for them to actually show up and do something about it. We only have really just a few more weeks for them to give us a hearing and pass this legislation. So it's really urgent, and the time is now for them to do something.